I have depression. It's pretty bad. I've been suffering symptoms for as long as I can remember, and it's been steadily getting worse over the past few years. I know that may come as a surprise, or maybe not when you consider my upload schedule, but it's pretty much been a constant throughout my life. As you can probably tell, having depression doesn't mean I'm walking around like Eeyore all the time. I wish I could describe how it feels in a way that allows people to understand just how bad it can be, but to me, depression feels like I've been living my whole life trapped in a sea of molasses. When it gets bad, everything feels exhausting, and it feels like I'm drowning. Every muscle feels numb, every action feels like climbing an endless mountain, even the things I feel passionate about feel impossible to do. And slowly, those passions begin to fade as they become harder and harder to reach. Doing things you enjoy becomes out of the question since it's not worth the effort. Sometimes you can't even stay out of bed or leave the house. Even simple shit like walking to the fridge for a cup of water so you can take your meds is exhausting. And it feels like there's no escape, no matter what you do. It's no surprise that I cling on to anything that brings me comfort like a little baby sloth, whether that means being on computer, making art when I have the will to do it, or in my most preferred case, video games. It could be worse, I could be doing crack. Gaming has brought me a lot of comfort throughout my life, including when I was at my worst, and today I want to go over some of those special games that have really helped me when I needed it. It's hard for me to quantify what makes a good depression game, partially because that definition is going to be different for every person. Personally, I don't usually fuck with cozy games like Stardew or Slime Rancher because having responsibility in game is the last thing I need. I don't like games that are outright depressing for obvious reasons, and for the most part, Pokemon games aren't that great when I'm depressed, probably because they take so long to finish. For me, it's gotta have a mix of the right atmosphere, the right amount of nostalgia, and it can't be absurdly long. Just a fair warning, you might not resonate with this video at all, and that's okay. This is by no means a complete list, nor a list of recommendations if you're depressed. I'm just doing what I've been doing on this channel, which is talking about games that I think are cool. Although this time, it's gonna be a lot more personal. No more bullshit, let's get to it. Starting off with the game that every depressed person loves, apparently. No, seriously, depressed people fucking love Dark Souls. What's the deal? You look up Dark Souls depression and you get tons of relevant YouTube videos and Reddit threads, tons of them. Of course, no two cases of depression nor people's experiences with Souls are the same, so I'm gonna try my best not to build my case off of anyone else's words or experiences. Just know that it's out there. Of the Soulsborns, Dark Souls 3 is my favorite. There's no real big reason for it, it's just the most technically sound of the games. You know I love me my in-depth mechanics that actually work. The weapon choices available to you are numerous and the upgrade paths don't suck, and while it doesn't have the interconnectedness of 1 or the aesthetic of Bloodborne, this is the one that calls out to me when I'm not doing well. Unlike most of the other games on this list, there's no big story behind my relationship with this game. It's just a huge comfort game for me. One that I've beaten far more than most games I've touched. Even in the rough patch I'm going through right now, boom, 2 new save files. These things multiply like rabbits. I could talk about the difficulty, the bosses, how the game is ironically super depressing, but all that's a given. What really spoke to me when reviewing a few of those videos is how the game treats one's purpose. In Dark Souls 3, your goal is, obviously, to bring the Lords of Cinders to their thrones and link the First Flame. But that purpose has been thrust upon you. You're forced to revive again and again and keep existing for this purpose that, as we've seen throughout the Souls series, many have simply abandoned. Even so, you're kept alive until the First Flame is linked and your goal is achieved. Then there are those who go hollow. People who have been revived so many times that they've essentially lost their minds, roaming the earth going through the motions of what they did in life. In this game's case, you see this as soldiers, townsfolk, guards. They've lost their purpose. Do I think hollowing can be a metaphor for depression? Sorta. But before I get into that, I want to go back to this idea of one's purpose. Why do you exist? What are you meant to do with your life? Of course, outside of Dark Souls, the answer to that is it's up to you to decide, even though in many cases other people try to decide for you. When I was growing up, I had very high expectations placed on me by my parents and the rest of my family. One of my earliest memories is my mom forcing me to read online articles about child prodigies who achieved some great feats when they were my age to try and shame me into greatness. In my last 2 years of high school, the only time she would talk to me was about college, and what college I was thinking about, and if my test scores were good enough to get into college. Growing up like that, my purpose was forced upon me. It's hard even when choosing a purpose for yourself. Remember at the start of the video when I talked about your passion slipping away from you? You're gonna have battles like that no matter what you do, and when your life's like mine, they feel like they're never gonna end, or you're never gonna get any rest. That's sort of the same feeling I got out of playing Souls, at least. What really sucks is when the battles get too strong and you lose the passion associated with that purpose. I guess that's the real-life version of going hollow without the dying repeatedly or going insane aspect. Suddenly, the things you've strived for your whole life become too much to bear after the struggles to get there wear you down too much, to the point where you barely want to keep going. Then you're just aimlessly going through the motions. Getting up, going to work, eating something you don't care for, then going back to sleep. That's where I'm at right now. Ironically enough, it's this video that's the only thing getting me out of bed. To me, at its core, Dark Souls is a game about grappling with your purpose. It's about overcoming those challenges, those adversities, those bullshit poison swamps. Finally, after all that, you've served your purpose, at the cost of your own life. That hits close to home. At least for me it does. Even after getting it drilled into me for my whole life that I had to go to college, I didn't feel a thing when it finally happened. I followed my various dreams through to the end. I beat my bracket demon after years, I bought a house, and I felt nothing. No big celebration, no feeling of I finally made it, just it's done. Sure, I haven't served my purpose in the same way the Ashen one has, but now what? Whatever it is, I hope it's not platinuming this game, because holy fuck! I have a lot of memories associated with the Prime trilogy. Back when I was still in school, back when summertime actually meant something, these used to be perfect summertime games. I'd finish at least one or two, try to do it on a higher difficulty or 100% them in the 3 months before I'd have to go back to school. Nowadays, I work full-time, and summer just means higher electricity bills, and I get weird looks going out just like this.
Big fucking drip.
I first found Metroid Prime Trilogy in the GameStop used games bin when I was like 13. And because this game was rated T and was technically a first-person shooter, my dad gave me this big rousing speech in the middle of the store about how he hates violent video games, and how he'd be doing his research like a good man to make sure there was no gore or anything like that before letting me play it. It was the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. My folks to be so anal about that kind of stuff. Thankfully, the rest of my memories of these games are more positive. I'd put on some Vocaloid album or some other shit and just play for as long as I could stomach every summer. Right after I graduated, I think I spent 20 hours straight finishing both Prime 1 and 2. This shit is certified gas. But why am I choosing to focus on Prime 2? This isn't the most popular in the trilogy, probably isn't the best, and I don't even know if it's my favorite. This is the best way I can explain it, though. Metroid games are usually solitary experiences. With very few exceptions, it's just you out there, alone in the middle of some hostile wasteland. There's something calming about it. Being all alone, making your way through multiple environments and biomes, blasting down enemies like it's nothing as you plan out point A to point B, while the music is like... Again, there are exceptions. I know Prime 4 just came out and we got this wahoo, and technically you aren't alone in Prime 2 either, but Umos never leaves the damn house, so it's mostly just you out there. Alone. I think the big reason why Prime 2 feels so different from the rest of the series, and what makes it a good depression game, isn't just that solitary atmosphere, but the context as to why you're alone on Aether. Going back to Dark Souls briefly, I saw a Tumblr post a while back that talked about how Dark Souls is dry and Bloodborne is wet. Stay with me. I know I sound insane, but that's kind of what's going on with Prime and Prime 2. Emphasis on kinda. I wasn't able to find the post in question, but essentially Dark Souls is a world that's been dying for millennia. The curse of the undead has been going on for ages, and the natural order of things has been out of whack for a long time now. There's not a whole lot of what we consider life left. Meanwhile, in Bloodborne, Yharnam is actively imploding as you're playing through it. Everyone's suddenly gone fucking insane, and you're right in the middle of this eternal hunt that's miles different than ones in the past. The bloodlust, the violence, it's very fresh and, pun intended, visceral. It's much livelier than Souls in that sense. I don't think this comparison is one-to-one with Prime and Prime 2, but let me try and explain it anyway. In Prime, the Chozo have been off Talon 4 for an untold amount of time, but despite that, the game doesn't feel dry at all. It's absolutely teeming with life. It's got jungles and ice caps filled with still working technology, and even the places that are supposed to be barren still have lots of proof of the Chozo being there. Despite civilization having ended ages ago, it's still a place that feels very fresh and alive, and even recovered from the Chozo's absence, which makes the stakes of you having to save it all the more important. It's technically a dead world, but it's recovered from that, only to be suddenly torn apart again by Phazon and the Space Pirates. Now, Prime 2, I think it's the dry one, honestly. Even though the conflict that led Aether to be completely empty is much more recent, it's a dying world that's been dying for a long time. You see these massive monuments of the Luminoth's existence, like the still operational Sanctuary Fortress and the massive society that surrounds it, all of it having been wrenched away by force with nothing but machines and Ing left. And the Aegon Wastes and Torvus Bog are just withered husks of their former selves. Whatever temples or technology that was built there just left to languish. Before Samus's arrival, Aether was very much a world that's been on its last legs for a while, just like Souls, with not much hope of recovery without her direct influence. I think that's it. That's the reason why this is a depression game. Not just because the Prime formula is engaging and always a comforting experience to get through. The world of Aether is just so different from every other setting in the series. You're traversing this world that's been dying for decades, but isn't quite dead yet. But it's nowhere close to alive either. The height of this game's conflict has long since passed, and here you are having to salvage this world from its own wreckage. For some reason or another, going through a world like that brings me a lot of comfort. Speaking of comfort, this is one of the first console games I ever played. Zoomer alert, I know. The Christmas I first got my Wii, I didn't do shit but play this game and Mario Kart and try to ignore all the relatives that stopped by. I remember getting pissed at Dino Piranha taking forever because I kept trying to run around the whole planet to get it instead of just circling around it. It was one of my first real platformers, give me a break. Even now, just like the Prime trilogy, I need to beat either this game or Galaxy 2 once every few years or I start to fade from existence, even though I can only really stand the original Wii controls. But there's a reason why they keep re-releasing this one. It's the atmosphere. Sure, each galaxy is going to have a different one depending on its theming, from lush to dry to spooky, but the one thing most galaxies have in common is that so many of them are just so vast and empty. Sure, there's plenty of wacky stuff to see and do and jump on in each planet, but looking past what's intended to be interactable within each level. It always bugged me how these supposed galaxies are always so small. Obviously, they're galaxies in name only, and each one isn't meant to be some sprawling open-world adventure. But I always wished there was some way to explore beyond the bounds of what was intended for these relatively tiny worlds. In a few galaxies, namely Dusty Dune and Bubble Breeze, you start by flying over these colossal, planet-sized tundras of quicksand and poison swamp, respectively, before being taken to the main string of planets or islands you're intended to complete. I always wondered what was hidden within that nothingness, if there was ever any islands or continents or other areas I'd never get to see. Sometimes, in other instances, it's almost as if the game's hiding something from you. Like, you're telling me that this tiny orb of water is all that counts as a galaxy? What's beyond that, if anything? Is this really all there is, just some tiny ecosystem floating out in the middle of space? With no other planets, no life, or anything beyond that? Semi-related, but something else that's always enamored me have been the skyboxes in both this game and its sequel. Yes, there's that thing, that's cool, but I'm talking more generally. In several of Galaxies, the skybox is this massive planet beneath you with lights outlining these star patterns. I always imagined that this was Earth you were floating above, with the lights being the remnants of the Star Festival you experienced at the start of the game. Then you've got stuff like Big Mouth Galaxy with this colossal body of water silently resting beneath you. What's the deal with that? What's there that we'll never get to see? Just in these few examples, you can see how Mario Galaxy sparks my curiosity without really even doing anything special or out of the ordinary. I know there's nothing there, that these are just design set pieces, but the fact that you can't explore them makes your adventures feel so much more minute, so much smaller and insignificant. With other 3D Mario games, it's much more confined. You're limited to everything within Peach's castle or Isle Delfino, but with Galaxy, you're crossing the whole damn universe. Of course you're not going to be able to see everything it has to provide. I'm certainly not complaining that there isn't enough to do or see in this game, far from it. It's that empty atmosphere combined with the spectacle that they do give you that makes this game so special. Of course, I can't ignore the elephant in your YouTube sidebar currently. I do think at its core, Mario Galaxy has this sorrowful atmosphere that other Bing Bing Wahoo games just don't have. Sure, it's partially because of the backstory they gave Rosalina and the hub world that acts as your home throughout the game, but I do think there is certainly some sadness in how empty this game can feel. It's got its highs, like certain galaxies that have super cheery environments and music, but a majority of the game is set in this backdrop of isolation, of traveling to these desolate places and diving into the unknown. I think finding the good in all that is what makes Mario Galaxy a good depression game. Knowing that despite the emptiness, despite all the unknown that's out there, there's enough in front of you that's good and cheerful and worth it to keep going. It's a tough lesson to swallow if you're depressed, because some days it feels like you're just wallowing in the shit pit forever. But it's out there. Apparently. Not every depressing game is a depression game, but there are some depressing games out there with their own special flavor of melancholy that you're just not going to see anywhere else. Shadow of the Colossus, where you're sacrificing yourself to extinguish the last living beings in the world you're in, Persona 3, where you're coming to terms with your own death without even realizing it, Mother 3, which spends 30 hours straight kicking you in the balls, and Majora's Mask, which is special in all sorts of ways. I've had this game on my Wii since I was a kid, and every time I tried to beat it, I'd end up at Woodfall, get scared of the time limit, give up, and Song of Time out of there. It wasn't until the 3DS version came out that I finally beat it for the first time. And to once again address the elephant that's in your sidebar, it's got its differences, I liked it just fine, the original is probably better. But my opinions have been famously wrong before, sorry about that. Anyway, I finally beat the original this year, and man, that was some good shit. The creep factor, the haunting soundtrack, the whole setting in general, it's just a banger. It hasn't even been a full year and I already want to replay it. Shame about the inverted aiming controls though, and that's where the 3DS has this one beat. Just like Prime 2 and Dark Souls, the world of Termina is dying. But it's not dying in the same way as either of those games. It hasn't been dying for ages, nor is its malaise the result of some long-fought conflict. Skull Kid arrives, and suddenly everything snaps. The environment has been poisoned, the dead can't rest, and the world's gonna end in 72 hours. I don't think any game with a dying world setting has done it quite like this. Sure, maybe there are a few examples out there, but none of them have the same tone that Majora's Mask has. But the strange thing is that your attempts to save the world sort of melt into the background. They end up being impermanent. Every time you save an area, thanks to the Song of Time, it's eventually going to go back to being broken again. The rewards you get from it are still there, and you're still making progress towards fighting Skull Kid, but are you really fixing anything? No matter what you do, what upgrades you get, or which people you save, or which minigames you complete, you're going to have to reset everything eventually, up until that final playthrough of the 3-day cycle. In reality, this game is all about the side quests. Stopping an alien invasion, collecting frogs, jamming out with your band, not to mention Kafei and Anju, probably the most popular side quest in Zelda. The number of optional things in this game is incredible. They managed to fit in so much stuff without it feeling thrown together or half-baked. I think this is thanks to Majora's Mask's famously rushed development cycle. It's almost as if weirdo shit like the Beaver Brothers and Kamaro's side quest, along with all the speculative half-finished lore, became questions of how can we make this work, instead of wasting time debating over will it work. It's because of all these side quests and optional content that you need an entire in-game notebook to keep track of that Majora's Mask feels like a fully idealized world, one that needs saving. One where the NPCs are more than NPCs, they've got their own schedules and lives. The stakes here are very real, and there's a lot to lose if Termina goes under, but again, each side quest you complete and every person you help is gonna reset eventually. You are saving the world, but what did you really fix? Is Romani still lobotomized? Are Kafei and Anju back together? Did you fucking jam out with your band hard enough? Even so, I'm not quite sure why this game makes this list. It's not just its dying world setting like Souls or Prime 2, or the fact that it's a particularly dark Zelda game. I think the reason it feels so special is how nobody's insane enough to try and make this exact type of game ever again. And that's why the special melancholy it holds will never be replicated. Sure, people can try to develop a game where the world's ending or you have some massive crunch looming over you, either in-game or in real life, but it's never going to be the same as Majora's Mask. That, I think, is what really makes it unique. Nothing like this is ever going to exist again.
Who's that?
It's Aisha, bitch. I make these rap cats go and beat some bitch. With my big fat ass.
Atelier is a weird series. With so many intricacies and special rules to alchemy synthesis and stuff you have to learn through trial and error, all with usually some sort of deadline threatening you, it barely makes the cut for this video. It's a lot different from the other games I've shown here, both gameplay-wise and because I have no nostalgia connection to this one. I just played it at the start of the year. But it is, once again, set in a dying world, so maybe these games are more similar than I thought. You know what I love even more than dying world settings? Soft apocalypse stories. These are where some cataclysmic disaster has fucked up humanity often to the point of near extinction, but the focus of the story remains a lot smaller in scope and usually doesn't try to stop whatever disaster it is. They focus more on interpersonal relationships, collective growth, and people enjoying their last days. Whatever conflict there is usually is nowhere close to the end of the world, despite that often actively happening. Or at least that's how it is in the stories I like. I think the most famous example of this is Yokohama Kairashi Kiko, where an android barista takes care of a quiet coffee shop after most of humanity has been wiped out. That's the kind of world the Dusk Trilogy is set in. Atelier likes to do trilogies set in the same universe, usually with different protagonists each time. But you're not fighting over food or resources or even against other people. Whatever apocalypse or event that's happening here gets talked about more hush-hush like in flavor text telling you clean water is becoming rarer, or brief mentions from side characters that something's wrong. Your goal in Aisha isn't to save the world or reverse whatever calamity is happening here. You're trying to find your sister who has disappeared. That's it. You get an ominous message telling you have 3 in-game years to do so before she vanishes forever, and the game says go for it. But you know what's strange about Aisha? Just like Majora's Mask, the game puts more of an emphasis on side quests than the main story. Honestly, most of the time, they're not even real side quests. The game is filled with these short events where you meet up with the friends you met along your journey, and sometimes you get a cute CG to go along with it. Stuff like playing dress up or finding out Aisha is a total lightweight.
Here, Mommy brought you some water.
Of the non-alchemy/travel stuff happening in this game, a good 70% of it is comprised of these silly little events, while story development is a lot more sparse. Like I said, it's a weird game. I don't even think it's the kind of game I typically enjoy. It's this odd mishmash that's half girly stuff and half hardcore synthesis/RPG optimization that isn't really the kind that I like. But whenever I think over all the games I played this year, this one always sticks out to me. And I think I figured out why, but you're gonna have to bear with me. Do you ever feel like you're missing something really important? Big question, I know. Something shiny and wonderful that other people you hang around seem to have, but you don't. I've always felt this way when looking at certain social circles, in online voiceover, my local fighting game community, places I frequent often. Like everyone else has something that I don't. I figured out through a lot of therapy that what I'm searching for is the sense of belonging, that internal feeling that I truly belong in the space where I exist. Sure, there are friend groups where I definitely feel that, but there's some spaces where I don't, and it makes me kind of bummed out. And I really cherish those moments where I'm able to find that sense of belonging either in an unexpected place or after not having it for a while. Like at a party or when my friends come to visit from across the state for the first time in months. I think that's what sticks with me about Aisha, is that those little events and CGs are basically hang out with your friends simulator. After weeks or months of in-game synthesis or traveling, getting those chill moments to just hang out or do something funny in-game must be refreshing for poor Aisha, who canonically grew up very sheltered and secluded. In the setting of the Dusk Trilogy, where humanity is slowly dwindling in the background, it's nice to have so much focus on more joyful interpersonal relationships. Sure, there are sad moments, such as this one event where you attend a funeral for these cute little homunculus dudes, but the game doesn't dwell on those at all. Literally, see, he's okay now.
Hey, I am back.
To me, Atelier Aisha, that is how it's pronounced, I checked, is a game that puts that emphasis on belonging and enjoying the time spent with those you cherish in the face of the harsh circumstances of life. It's the best definition of a soft apocalypse game that I can think of, and it makes the list not because of nostalgic reasons, but because that setting and focus really resonates with me personally. I'm hoping the rest of the Dusk Trilogy is more of the same, and I really hope I can figure out the alchemy part, because what the fuck is going on here? Well, that's the last of them. I hope you're coming out of this video with a new outlook on games you're familiar with, or, in Aisha's case, a good first impression of a game you've never heard of before. This is usually when I would start wrapping it up with some overarching message about how games bring us comfort and shit like that, but I'm not gonna do that this time. Let me be clear before I go any further. This video was never meant to be a cry for help or consist of me whining about my life. I know it's been a lot different from what I normally make, but I wanted to get one more video done before the end of the year, and considering the current rut I'm in, this was the best way to do it. I'm sorry if you didn't get anything out of this video or if it freaked you out a little bit, but I want to end this one sharing my personal experience living with depression. I know I usually never get that personal when making my videos, but I think it might help me to get it all out there. If you're not up for that, you can go ahead and click off now, and I promise I won't be offended. Especially if you're one of my coworkers and somehow found this video. Please, get the fuck out of here. Like I said at the start, depression robs you of everything. Of your passions, of your energy, of most things that make life worth it. At its worst, it leaves you in a state where you're doing just the bare minimum it takes to exist. The earliest I felt that way was around 8 or 9, practically a baby. Due to insane treatment from my family and multiple friends moving away, I was stuck with this weird desire to just not exist anymore. Crazy, I know. I don't remember how long it lasted, but just being stuck with those feelings and thinking I didn't even deserve to live at such a young age is absolutely insane. Things got really bad when I reached high school, when the expectations and pressure put on me by my folks finally started to peak. Because I didn't enjoy doing much of anything other than playing Pokemon and Monster Hunter, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't good enough at any of my real passions to turn them into careers because I couldn't be arsed to put in any effort. In a weird fit of desperation, I clung to both video editing and voiceover, inspired by both various YouTube channels and games I had played. Even though I had no experience, I figured I'd have to choose something. Though anyone who's an editor or voice actor can tell you that these are some of the most oversaturated fields out there, with plenty of people who are seemingly already perfect. My folks had always loved comparing me to other people in my class or other kids my age. Why aren't you getting grades like so-and-so? Why aren't you in the advanced orchestra? Whatever. Now that I finally knew what I wanted to do with my life, I did the only thing I knew how and applied that pressure to myself. To this day, I still compare myself to everybody. To channels that get tens of thousands of subscribers overnight, to fellow actors I used to voice in projects with who later became famous. I can't stop. I am a jealous motherfucker if it wasn't obvious. I'm jealous of everyone who gets to live their lives without having to experience what I do. The shame, the lack of interest, the ability to do anything. I have to sit in my shit pit and watch people waltz around in fucking la-di-da land and tell me, oh, it isn't that bad, you just have to work harder. Of course, nobody's actually doing that. To me in particular, that's just me being bitter. I've gone through life with thoughts of suicide constantly in the back of my mind. Not always in a this needs to happen now sort of way, but instead more subtle, like it has to end like this eventually. Ever since I was young, I figured that it'd happen someday. One day I would just snap under my own comparisons, under my own disinterest in living, under whatever excuse I could find. Right as I started college, one of my best friends since childhood killed himself. I still don't know why or what happened in his life that would lead to something so horrible. There are no words to tell you how thoroughly his death impacted me, and it's an understatement to say I've never been the same since. That's not the kind of thing you recover from, being close to someone who's done something like that. Sure, you can't cry over it forever, but it fundamentally changes you. And that loss is what it took for those thoughts to stop. I never want anyone I love to go through the pain I've experienced, because I know it never really goes away. On my absolute lowest days, that's all that keeps me going. I hate that it has to be that way, but if it keeps me alive, then so be it. I wouldn't say things got better from there, but they stopped getting worse. I graduated, I landed an editing job that I like, and here I am now. Still empty, despite having everything I ever wanted 10 years ago. Like my ability to feel fulfilled just never developed. I don't set goals for myself or get excited over new videos or voiceover opportunities anymore because they all end the same way, with me feeling empty. These days I just lay in bed most of the time, only getting up to work, play through games I've already finished several times, or working on this video. Even though I'm planning on sticking around, I don't know what I'll get out of doing so. Depression has taught me a lot. That I'm a burden to others, that I'm a worthless pig, that my body is rotting, that anything I have achieved throughout my life has been some sort of sham. Are any of these things true? Probably not, though the thoughts are so strong that I can't physically feel otherwise. Even after years and years of trying to pull myself out, this is the reality that I live in. The biggest lesson that it's taught me, and let me look you in the eyes when I say this, is that a better future is not possible. This is it. The shame, the bitterness, the lack of everything that's supposed to make life wonderful. Believe me when I say that I'd like nothing more than to be wrong. I want to escape. I want to stop fighting the same endless battle and step into some sense of normalcy. I just want to feel normal, like everyone else, but it's almost as if normal doesn't belong to someone like me. I'm tired, y'all. I'm completely exhausted, every day. And I can't rely on the same 5 or 10 games to keep me afloat forever. I don't even want to be kept afloat. I just want to live. I don't want to go out having never lived a day in my life, but do I even have a choice? I'm sorry. I wish I had some sort of insightful message to end this video off for you, or something positive for everyone else suffering the way I'm suffering. I've spent weeks writing and rewriting this section to find the message I wanted to get across, to end this video somewhere else than the absolute bottom. But I have nothing. I don't have anything more to say. I don't know. I just don't know.